All right, guys, welcome to the Rooted Conversations podcast. I am your host, Mitch Webb. Today, we have a very special guest, Miss Irene Goose. She's from one of my local holistic practitioner groups here in Holly Springs, North Carolina, close to Raleigh, North Carolina. And she is a postpartum doula and sleep coach. So I know that a lot of the clients that I'm working with are dealing with nervous system dysregulation, are dealing with sleep issues. And when I heard that she's a sleep coach, I wanted to get her in. She specializes in helping babies who are having trouble sleeping or helping the parents of the children that are having trouble sleeping. And what she was telling me offline is that she ends up helping the parents a lot. And she's already given me all types of cool information and tips. I had to hit record before we talked for an entire 3 hours before we got on here. So, Irene, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Mitch. I'm really excited to connect and talk about nervous system stuff. I love geeking out on this.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I feel like nervous system regulation and sleep goes hand in hand. I know for me, I had insomnia for 20 years. I still deal with insomnia here and there. It's gotten so much better because of the nervous system work. And kind of like we were talking about offline, there's so much information when it comes to sleep, and there's biohacking and all of these things that can really sounds good on the surface, but can kind of keep us in a pattern of not sleeping and trying to fix something that's not broken. So I'm glad you're here to kind of clear that up. But to get started, you know, there's got to be a backstory of someone who becomes a sleep coach. Like, were you a lifetime sleep expert, or was there a time when sleep was tough? How did you get into this work?
Yeah, so my work was inspired 19 years ago by my oldest son who was not sleeping. And there were so many aha moments that happened for me years later. But of course, hindsight is 2020
Yeah.
always. But when he was born, I didn't know or understand anything about newborn sleep. And he was like grunting, doing all this stuff. And I didn't realize at the time that that was actually sleep communication. I
Sleep
now know
communication.
this. Sleep communication, like grunts and kicking and things like that, that the body does that is doing while they're sleeping. And because babies actually have a lot of active sleep, they spend over 50% of their time in active sleep. And I think as adults, we don't really understand active sleep and deep sleep and really understanding what that looks like and feels like. And so it can be really confusing. Well, here's my son grunting, doing all his things. Then I'm walking, doing miles in my house. And the moment I would try to put him down, he'd pop up. And one of the things I realized, I was like, I never coached him or taught him like to learn to accept his sleep environment.
Mm.
So then I was just like rocking and doing all the things for him. And you know what? Babies actually need that. Like babies need to learn what it is to be soothed and to be regulated. The
Okay.
challenging part was that I was not regulated. And I didn't know that I was dealing with intrusive thoughts at the
Mm.
time.
Mhm.
My husband had a pretty major surgery right around his birth. And so, like, that whole first, I would say, year for my son Connor was a blur. And I didn't know, like, that the way I was showing up and taking care of everyone around me but myself was really the impact of keeping me sleepless. And I had all these anxious thoughts. So even if and when he was sleeping, I was waking up in the middle of the night. I mean, it was just a nightmare. So that's kind of how it felt when I became a parent. And then I was a school teacher, and I was like, well, what can I do to get out of the classroom but still be teaching? And so I got trained as a sleep coach with the Sleep Lady. And I was part of her first 50 cohort members. And it was just amazing. And I learned so many things about the body. And it was like the beginning of like my healing journey of
Mhm.
recognizing like that I was probably dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety. I didn't have a support system. I didn't know and understand what was happening in my body and how to take care of myself as I was trying to take care of my little one.
That's such an interesting correlation between what I see so much. I mean, I feel like nervous system regulation and sleep, like I already said that, it goes hand in hand. But talking about you being dysregulated as the parent, not understanding the accepting the sleep environment, understanding our own intrusive thoughts, how our dysregulation is affecting others, and really I think it's amazing to recognize that. It takes a lot of awareness to slow down and see that, and then to want to attune and learn how to help someone else because, that we know that when we help our family, our kids, our friends, and people that we love, that ripples out. Um, I want to circle back and understand what does it mean to accept our sleep environment?
Accept our sleep environment. So your body is all about having a safe sleep or like a safety check, right? So most of us don't realize that the first thing our body is scanning for is safety and security.
Sure.
And so if I don't know what that environment looks like, so you just drop a baby in a bassinet or put them in a pack and play or lay them down somewhere, they're like, "What? I'm not in my mom or dad's cozy arms. Like no one's holding
Okay.
me." I don't know and understand what that feels like. So it's important to think about how do I practice that with my child. For example, I also work with toddlers and preschoolers. So sometimes we want them to sleep in a room by themselves,
Hmm.
but they've never had a chance to practice what it felt like to actually be by myself and feel safe in an environment. And so oftentimes I encourage parents to think, I don't know if you've ever heard of like a yes space.
Tell me. I mean, I can think of so many. I think of immediately when you say accept your environment of I just went on vacation. That first night of sleep, half of your brain is awake and is trying to figure out what's going on. Is that similar to a child that hasn't slept on their own? Would that be like a correlative like
Yeah.
deal?
Think about when you went on vacation. Did you go around the room, like check the bed, go to the bathroom, look around?
See, that's what I want to know next. Like, what are the things that we can do? Like, if someone's listening to this, I am
Yeah.
all about accepting, right? Accepting our sensations, our symptoms, all of that. One of the most impactful things that I've done for my nervous system this year. How do we accept a sleep environment if we want to go into our bedroom tonight and do that?
Yeah. So think about it. Like you go to a hotel for traveling.
Mhm.
You look in your environment, you're checking everything out. You're actually allowing your body to assimilate and become like aware of the environment and be like, "Hey, this is okay. This is safe for you to let go and drift off to sleep." Because
Okay.
biologically, that's what happens with sleep. Like you drift off and let go because your body feels safe and secure.
Mhm.
The challenging part is, let's say you're a child and you've never had an opportunity to practice that, and you just travel and you're expected to just sleep in a pack and
That
play or
sounds like
sleep.
pressure to me.
That's a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
so now all of a sudden my body's on alert. I'm like, oh no, that's not going to happen. So, like, literally, what would happen is I would walk through the door. My son was very alert and very aware. And I never practiced with him like what it looked like to just be in that room. We
Mm.
changed his diaper. We went to sleep in there, but like, did I actually take time to play and like let him like take in his environment, what he was actually seeing?
Mhm.
And so it's
In
really
the
about
nervous system. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, it's just really about learning how to slow things down. And so a yes space actually is that opportunity to create that opportunity for children to become safe and secure without an adult always present. It's not about independence. It's not about having children just like sleep independently, learn to play independently. It's really about them feeling confident, like, hey, I can manage this space and I'm okay. And I think about for adults who probably are struggling with sleep, like, did we have that communicated to us along the way? Or were we just thrown into those situations and had to figure it out?
So, what comes to my mind, in nervous system work, we do orienting. Are you familiar with that term?
It sounds like kind of the assimilating to that.
Yeah,
I
that,
don't,
that that's when you say have this environment. It's like I would think orienting. So, what I'm going to do in that situation, if I was, just giving you an example, help me here, build it out.
yeah.
I would lay. Now, I also think of myself going to bed. I'm in a new home. I've been here for about a year, and for about the first 6 months, we turn off the EMF stuff at nighttime, and so it's super dark walking to my room, and it's dark, and I'm walking in there, and I don't really know the space so much, and I'm kind of like, are there ghosts over here? Like I feel myself getting kind of afraid. Maybe I turn off the lights and I hop in bed. Maybe I step on something. It's uncomfortable. And I get in bed. I can feel this like fear feeling that almost makes me kind of laugh as an adult. But I can see how can I optimize this? Or I don't like that word anymore, but how can I improve this environmental yes? And that would be I'm going to use my senses. I'm going to feel, I have a chili pad that I sleep on. I'm going to feel that cold bed because that feels really good to me. I'm going to cuddle up with my pillows. Maybe I'm going to look around the room a little bit using my eyes and hear what's going on. So I would orient using all the senses that I can think of to send this signal to my nervous system that it's safe.
Yeah. And Mitch, as you're saying that, it makes me wonder if you would just need to slow down
Oh
in your
yeah, well,
transition.
get out
You
of my
know,
head,
because
Irene.
because I'm just wondering, like, you're like, I'm going so fast, right? And like, I'm
Yeah.
stepping on something, and just sometimes recognizing, like, do you set up your environment in advance, looking at it with lights on so you can see it?
Okay, I
So,
like that.
so that when it's like lights are out or dimmed, we can understand it better. So it's the little thing, like I think of them as like little sleep nuances. It's the little details for everybody in their routines that's important to reflect on.
Hmm.
Like what is working, what's not working to help our body sleep. And children are very aware and very sensitive to
Hmm.
that, which
Hmm.
then makes very aware and sensitive adults.
Wow.
And so,
Okay.
and so just sometimes slowing down and recognizing what am I expecting of my body on how to adjust to that.
Okay, so let's slow it down then. So if I was gonna slow it down, then maybe I'm gonna go turn on my chili pad and cut on a little night light type thing so that and I'm gonna look around the room and just kind of check things out.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna use all the orienting stuff that I just talked about. Maybe I'm feeling the cold hardwood floors, so I'm noticing that temperature. I'm looking around my room. Maybe I'm what is it called? Like throw back my bed a little bit so that when I can just kind of hop in and I'm checking all of that. I'm looking at do I have the pillow that I like? I like a body pillow as
Yeah,
well. And then maybe I'm going ahead and turn on my sound machine. I'm in the room listening to that a little bit. And we're talking about like 1 or 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be elaborate, it sounds like.
it does not. What you've just done is you've communicated physical cues
Hmm.
to help your body know this means it's okay to go to sleep. So when you layer in those things like the sound machine, the chili pad, it's going to look different for everybody. It does not have to be elaborate. Those things could help, but it's one of those things like you do that predictably every night. So your body knows, hey, it's time to go to sleep. But if you keep mixing it up every night, then
Oh,
your body's like confused. Your body's like, wait, what are we doing here? You know? So sometimes parents are like, do we need to experiment and change the bedtime routine? And even adults, I recommend pick a routine that you feel like I can follow through with this consistently, whether I'm here at home or even on the go.
wow.
Something that it's just like, hey, like I'm going to use, for example, with children, like a lot of times I'll say, like, they're going to have like their swaddle or a sleep sack or a blanket, depending on their age, the sound machine, a book they read, and then their sleep space. That's really it.
hmm
And
Yeah, I
if I
can't think of
do,
anything else for me except I like to listen to an audiobook for maybe 15 or 20 minutes right before I fall asleep. I probably make it through 10 minutes most of the time. And
yeah,
here's the thing too. I think, and I'm constantly going to be taking the child thing and bringing it to my clients.
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
like this is a way because I know that my clients are going to have activation, so maybe they're experiencing anxiety or they're nervous about sleep. And if this is a way to establish a routine that's establishing safety, that's not elaborate, that when repeated, I imagine we can go to sleep even when we have anxiety.
Absolutely. So oftentimes we think about like what are the strategies that are going to help us sleep?
Mhm.
That's where our brains go automatically because we're trying to fix it.
Mhm.
The goal is never to fix ourselves.
Let's unpack that. What's it like? What's it look like to fix sleep, and what does that do to people that are wanting to get it?
Yeah, so like if you are so one of the big mistakes that people make around sleep is they focus so much on like sleep.
Yep.
So the more you focus on it, the worse it gets.
Okay.
Sometimes like for children, they'll talk about sleep training. Even for adults, it's like that sleep hygiene, which is an important piece. But if we focus too much on that, Like we're like, I have to have the right routine. We're bringing in all this judgment
Hmm.
onto it. We're coming in with fear and stress. That's not going to help us sleep. The other thing too that happens is that we're focused on sometimes those are elements that might be part of our tools and strategies, but the goal that we want to focus on is that safety and security. Are we feeling satiated? Are we able to settle and feel comfortable? And do we
Satiated is in like full, like hungry, or satiated in a different way?
satiate is in full, like we ate well, we've eaten well, because feeding and sleep regulate
Mhm.
our bodies. And so when we have, like, when we're feeding around the same time as adults, when we're sleeping around the same time as adults, we're going to feel our best selves because that's going to align with our circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
And the last strategy we want to focus on is sleep pressure, making sure that we have enough wake time that's going to let us drift off. But the challenge that happens, and what you are talking about, Mitch, is that people get into this story like, I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. I'm telling myself a story that's not even valid and
This
true.
is me. This is me.
And
Let's go here. Let's go here. I can hear my
so,
mind. Yeah, this story will happen where I'm anticipating sleep so much.
so the goal really should be like, we should think about our state. Like, am I setting myself up to show up and lead myself to just be able to drift off? Like, sleep is a biological need. Like, we do just drift off. It takes 15 to 20 minutes for the body to drift off to sleep. That's
To
oftentimes
let go, would you call that letting go?
to let go. Sometimes with children, I'll even say surrender, to like really let go, because like when children are in an active state of sleep, when you're reading your book, you're in like that active state of sleep. You're almost like zoning out, preparing the body to just kind of like, and done.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we don't give ourselves that permission to slow down at that bedtime.
Permission is such a powerful thing when it comes to this work because if we're in that story, if we're anticipating, it just feels like I think you said perfection, and it feels like so much pressure, and it's the opposite of the sleep pressure we're looking for.
The absolute opposite.
Yeah.
It has to be a let go and be okay. Just be. I oftentimes talk a lot about like being versus doing.
Amen, sister. That's a cornerstone of my work. And for us doers, it's really hard. Me and my therapist were a couple months ago, we're going back and forth laughing, at how strong this pattern was in me. And, because we were talking about being versus doing. And I kept going, so being, doing, and so how do I do that? And we would laugh, and it's like, I came to this conclusion. We kind of argue back and forth on a debate, and it's like I think you have to do until you can see the pattern and be and let go of all that doing. Like there has to be an education to why am I doing all this and how exhausting that is, so that I can see it, so that I can choose something new and create a new opportunity to experience something new. And that's how the brain is going to update the software.
Yeah. Yeah, what you just said, like we have to practice. We can't expect like I'm going to do this one thing and it's going to be the thing that's going to help me sleep. Like
Yeah.
that never works out that way. And I oftentimes will share that the skill we're working on is learning to be still.
Yeah, and that is
Yeah.
tough for a nervous system that is like just going, 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 and maybe we're not even aware of it. When we're in like a functional freeze, you may see the image I love is there's a duck on the water and it looks very elegant, but underneath those legs are going a million miles an hour. So
Yeah.
what I think about is if you, so me, I'll get a story going, I'll be feeling activation all day long. There's like these little rumination thoughts that are coming in, the story that is being built that's telling me I'm not going to sleep good. So if somebody is noticing that, how would you help them with that?
Yeah. So one, I think the key is to just have some awareness. And I oftentimes will use a framework called Breathe Love.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. So breathe love was a mantra that came up for me during my home daycare days. Because to be honest, I was breathing a lot of fear, stress, anxiety. Because I was like, stop doing this. Like, what? And I was like convinced that these children were there, placed in my path to piss me off. If I'm honest, I was like, this is what's happening. But really, it was a reframe of recognizing can I breathe love? And breathe was really the opportunity to pause.
Mhm.
And then L is for listen, O is for observe, V is for validate, and E is empower. As I was going through my sleep coaching training and the work as I was healing, I was learning that I really needed to tune in and listen first before I did anything. And I needed to pause to really just listen. And sometimes it was like, what was happening around me, observing the situation, observing the feelings and emotions that were coming up. And oftentimes I could be really good about naming it for my children, but I couldn't name it for myself. So that was what I needed to practice. So, like, I was like, well, this is easy for me to do with you, but then, like, how am I showing up? Because
Oh my
oftentimes,
gosh. This sounds like me working with my clients where I can, and what you're talking about is noticing, is being present, listening into my body, into the emotions, into the sensations, letting them be there, maybe expressing that. And now the body isn't holding all of this tension and emotion and being bypassed while we connect to someone else. So it's almost like we're abandoning ourselves in that picture as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we're supposed to be. There's a concept called borrowing the wire in
Oh,
polyvagal theory. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of polyvagal. I don't know borrowing the wire.
It basically means in the beginning. Let's see if I can look at my little chart here. Our our ventral vagal nervous system is not online, and so we borrow the wire from our parents to regulate. But if our
Yeah.
parents do not know how to regulate, then we're just going deeper into active or higher into, this is kind of the latter, going higher into activation, and we're both not aware of what's going on. And so then you have kids that come out very dysregulated, and they're working with me later in their life, and they are me, you know.
Yeah. And so I call that co-regulation
Yeah.
with little ones. I'll oftentimes will say, if I'm not feeling regulated, I'm observing that. I want to validate and at least give myself permission to be like, hey, I'm not okay. I need to go to the bathroom. I need to eat, like sometimes checking in on my needs and
Mhm.
then being able to empower the situation and take action. But then I can be with my child because I made a decision of recognizing that. And I can come back and also figure out how do I take care of myself in this moment. And I
Mhm.
think what you were saying about like meeting those needs, like I think oftentimes parents have a hard time figuring out how do I take care of myself as I'm also taking care of my child.
Oh, it
So
has to happen.
so breathe love was like that mantra, like that, like, oh, I'm feeling triggered. Why am I feeling triggered? And am I coming from a place of like love and learning, which is going to be breathing love? Or am I coming from a place of fear where I'm bringing in fear, judgment? And this is where I start telling myself a story. I'm like, oh no, if you don't go to sleep, if I don't go to sleep, what's going to happen? And I'm catastrophizing.
Yes.
And so it's important to stop and think about the stories that we're telling ourselves. And that breathe love, like when we pause to observe, we can ask ourselves a better question there. And usually the better question is, what do I really need? What does someone need around me? Because oftentimes we also can be activated when we're in conversation. Like this could happen with husband, wife, and work relations, all kinds of circumstances. And so I'm always like, am I breathing love or am I breathing fear? And just sometimes that
Oh, now I
mantra
get it.
helps
It
me,
just clicked for me. I got it now.
it just helps me reset. So then I'm like, oh, like I can reset my body. Like I want to choose love rather than fear.
Hmm.
So this becomes a tool. Like this is like kind of the foundational work I work with my parents on. And I think it's probably the work you're doing too, but we just call it a little something different.
Give
And
me the acronym one more time because I was trying to write that down. I wrote listen. Give me the LOVE.
yeah, listen, observe,
Observe.
validate, and
Yep. Yep.
empower. And validate is just oftentimes, can I give myself permission to also exist in this relationship? Because it's like what you were talking about, like as parents, like if you never learned to co-regulate, to be with someone in these big emotions. And if I'm honest, like if you've ever been to a store and you've seen a toddler or a preschooler melt down, they're pretty passionate. And I think as adults, we probably have that same kind of passion, but we've learned not to. That was at least my journey. I'm a recovering perfectionist, recovering control freak, and a lot of that had to do with like what I learned about my emotions.
Okay, bro, slow that down real quick because I kind of get it. You're saying when other people have big emotions, it's almost like, what was that doing to you before? It sounds like you moved into this is me and that's them, and we can both be here in this environment so that I'm not blending with them and now I'm getting dysregulated because they are, and instead kind of holding space.
Yes. Now I know how to do that. Before I didn't because my codependency would
Yeah.
want to
Hello,
keep me
attachment.
I just want to be in here and fix it and like keep the peace, and become a people pleaser because it was uncomfortable. Because one of the things that messaging that I learned growing up was like that I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh, hey, oh yeah, giving me
You
chills
know,
now. We have to do a trauma session after this.
and so it was one of those things like learning the messaging around crying, and for me, the work I do with children, children will cry because they're trying to communicate a need, and
Mhm,
not all crying is bad.
mhm,
But as adults, when we hear children cry, or if we are crying, like we start apologizing, we're like, oh, I'm sorry for crying. We start having these feelings or emotions we don't believe it's okay. There's a
mhm,
story we've attached to that that
mhm.
makes it more challenging. And how does this all relate to sleep? These are the stories that keep us up in the middle of the night at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning because we're ruminating on these experiences that, you know what? Hey, this was a really tough moment. If we could just be in that moment and deal with it, we can move on and not carry it into the night. And I think that's why right now we see so much education around in different modalities to help heal our bodies so that we can communicate more effectively, ultimately.
Wow. You're connecting attachment for me in a way that I haven't seen that before, where I don't have kids and I
Mhm.
can see myself like I'm the fun uncle and they always want to play with me. But when they start getting, man, their emotions can go from like 0 to 100 and then back up. And I do feel, I notice myself getting uncomfortable and I'm recognizing that that's like me going, oh, I want to help you. I don't want you to be feeling better, instead of letting them be in their feels and letting me more be okay with them being in their feels. That's huge. And that is the things that we're thinking about when we're laying awake at night.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And what you just said about the fun uncle, right? Like you're like, I just want to fix it. I don't want you to feel that way.
Hmm.
And it's like, could I just support you? Like, hey, we can do hard things
Hmm.
together.
Hmm.
And it has taken me many, many years. This was not like a one quick fix. This was a lot of therapy, EMDR, drumming therapy, talk therapy, all kinds of things, and working on learning what it is to rest, which
Hmm.
is a mindset shift, to be able to show up and lead myself better so that I can lead others around me.
So we got breathe love or breathe fear. So if we're someone who is ruminating, we're going to recognize those thoughts, and instead of pushing them away or trying to fix them with supplements or protocols or biohacking, we're just going to pause and just notice and recognize. We're going to be curious, the curious observer, right? We're
Mhm.
going to we're going to listen in. Oh, I'm telling that story. We're going to observe that. We're going to validate what's going on. Okay, yeah, I'm not okay. I'm feeling stressed. I'm uncomfortable. And then how would we empower from there?
So from there, you would empower by sometimes actually taking an action,
Okay.
so it could look like writing it down,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
writing it down, like maybe doing a gratitude
Mhm.
journal and being like, thank you for this reminder of
Mhm.
having this thought, and flipping the script,
Mhm. It's a little mental reframe kind of thing.
changing the story that we're telling ourselves. Because oftentimes, too, like if we start to bring in judgment on like whatever is bringing us fear, then it feels like we are trying to avoid it.
Mhm.
But we actually want to acknowledge it and then decide we're going to move forward.
Okay, so let's do me as an example because this is totally me. So if I'm ruminating and
Uh-huh.
I've got a story where I'll start doing that first thing in the morning where I'm like, oh man, and I could easily go into all the things that I know about sleep. I'm going to get morning sunlight. I'm going to, I'll even think about how I'm eating throughout the day. But in the back of that mind, I'm going to exhaust myself with exercise. Maybe I am going to journal, but it's like can become this compulsive avoidance type of fixing, optimizing thing. So if I were your
Mhm.
client and you're knowing that, hey, Mitch knows a lot about sleep hygiene and Zeitgebers and that education is kind of getting in the way. He's trying to set up this perfect night of sleep and he's got this story that he's anticipating not sleeping all day. Where would we start with that?
Yeah, I would say, Mitch, what do you want your day to look like? What do you want it to feel like, sound like when you first wake up?
I would love to wake up with feeling refreshed and have
What would,
energy for the day.
yeah, what would refresh look like, sound like, feel like?
It would be that like top that almost like I'm excited for the day. Like I see the sunlight and I'm like, oh man, it's going to be a great day. I'm excited. Like I can't wait to go do my to-do list. I get to see Irene on a podcast and I get to go play with my dog later. And I got these podcasts I'm doing, or I got these clients that I'm going to see and I'm going to film this video and I see my wife at the end of the day and eat a good meal.
You should tell yourself that better story every morning.
Oh, so all we're doing here in this situation is I see what you're saying. So that's a really good story to tell myself and anticipate. And so I can notice the shit story that I've been telling myself and I can just move into this other good story.
Yeah. I mean, and so sometimes like it's like in the morning time, I used to wake up like, so part of my journey was like, right, my kids would run into the room and wake me up. And I was like, oh. And so
Yeah.
now they were in control and I was no longer leading
Wow.
because I needed to decide that I was going to wake up at a certain time to take care of myself so I could show up for my kids.
Because
So
if I've had bad night after bad night and I'm anticipating that, then I will recreate that every single morning.
every single morning. And then great nights start with good mornings. And so
Mhm.
how you start your day really matters. So I used to be like, oh, they're going to come in here again. And like I was already dreading the day and the day didn't even start. I was still in bed. So literally just the shift that I had was to say, today's going to be a good day. Good
Hmm.
morning. Thank you for a new day. Like it just, I was like, when I wake up, I'm going to tell myself this. This is a better story to tell myself. And so it's really not just about positive affirmations, because like that also doesn't always resonate for
Yeah.
people. But it was the reframe of like, today is a new day. And so I get to do this. Like you were using a lot of language that's more empowering.
Mhm.
And so
Got it.
recognizing like, I want to tell myself a better story here through this.
Mhm. And
And
even
I,
if you haven't had a good night of sleep, this still applies because something I learned on vacation this past week is there was one day where I did not sleep at all. I might have gotten like 2 or 3 hours. But when I let go of what that meant for the next day, and I just got excited about I was in Wyoming and skiing. I had a great day, and then I crashed hard that night because the sleep wasn't even that important. Would you say it's more of my mindset and what I'm anticipating and the story that I'm telling myself?
it really is. It is your state of being that triggers so much of that. You
Wow.
know, most people like when we have that insomnia, right? Like there's like this lack of sleep. We're so worried about it that we're making it worse instead of better.
Mhm.
And I know that like this is a very oversimplified way that we're talking
Well,
about
that's what
it.
we're looking for, though. I think the more complicated we make it, the harder it becomes. Now I got to think about it. Like, I don't think we should have to think about it. It's more like the doing versus being.
Yeah, I'm like, just show up and be, you know what I mean? Like, what do you want it to look like? And then do more of that. And so, like, you know, I'll share with you an example of like some tips and tools I share with my families to help them change their story to improve their state of
Love
being.
it. Love it.
Because a lot of times, like, we're going to have conflict. I don't know if you have conflict in your day, but we're going to have conflict. You
I
know,
have conflict in my day. Who doesn't?
conflict in the day. It's going to happen, you
Yeah.
know. And so, like, for parents who are listening, you know, maybe they're trying to get out of the house and getting shoes on is really hard, or getting to the table and having a meal with somebody can be really hard, right? Like, sometimes maybe we didn't give ourselves enough time. We didn't like meal prep. We didn't like think through those things. So, sometimes just coming to a place of like, in that moment, can I turn on some music?
Mhm.
Can I turn on some music and have a dance party
Mhm.
through it? You know, can really shift the mood. And when we bring in movement, it helps change our body.
Absolutely.
Another one that I oftentimes will encourage parents to do specifically to help with sleep is grounding walks.
Like
So
bare feet kind of thing?
bare feet, take your shoes and socks off after a Zoom or after like you've done something at home and you're ready to shift the mood into the next transition. Let's go outside and do a grounding walk. Let's take our socks and shoes off, walk outside, touch the ground, touch the grass, hug a tree. Sometimes I'll like encourage, like, raise your hands up, touch the sky, give gratitude, shift your perspective. These little moments of like 2 to 3 minutes help your body regulate and take out the pressure, the stress that you're putting on yourself. A lot of a lot of times we only have time to do a 2 to 3 minute walk around the house.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Yeah.
that little by little resets you. So when I was teaching, we call those brain breaks.
Okay.
Now I call them mindset moments. Like, can I just be intentional about creating this moment where I'm going to reconnect with myself, reconnect with my body, and reconnect with my child to create connection and cooperation? So those little moments can help us propel the day. Because I oftentimes think about it's almost like if I had, just because I have a baby bottle, but let's imagine this was a soda bottle and I was just shaking it all day. And the pressure's just building, building, building. And now I want to go into sleep. So, of course, I'm not going to be able to because it's going to all explode and just be a mess. But if instead throughout the day, I'm like just taking off a little pressure, by the end of the night, it's flat. Like I can just be and go
It
to
doesn't
sleep.
have to be this like perfect regiment that's going into the old pattern. It's these transition moments of, I talked about this with my clients as well. Like if you've went and you've had a meeting, and I know for me, if I have back to back podcasts or back to back meetings, it's draining to be online,
Yeah,
and I can
absolutely.
get exhausted in between, and it feels like, man, do I need to go lay down and take a nap? But what I found is 5 minutes of awareness and slowing down in the body, using our senses, doing some of those orienting. And that may look like laying on the cold floor and just feeling the cold floor for 2 to 3 minutes. It's amazing the life that gives and the amount of recovery that we can have in those pauses, in those transitions throughout the day.
Yeah, that is a rest practice. Like I even recommend like take a nap. Around the world, other countries, they do practice siestas in the afternoon.
I saw a post where you were talking about you've napped every day for how many years or something like that?
I've been napping since my daycare days in 2008. And so my body actually knows to wake up right around like 17, 18, or 19 minutes. And so what's interesting is I encourage everybody because like if you nap, sometimes naps can take away some of the sleep pressure and impact nighttime sleep.
Yeah, so is that a real thing that because that's what I hear. Are naps good? Are naps taking away from the sleep pressure? Sometimes they say they're good, sometimes they're not. Obviously, you like them.
Yeah, I mean, I need it. And I think it's important to evaluate like what season of life am I in? So for parents, they might need to nap. For others, like sometimes is it like what you were just saying, where maybe I just need to take 5 minutes to get horizontal on the
Mhm.
cold floor, on the bed, just to change positioning for my body. So a lot of times, like I'll just do deep breathing or I'll do a little bit of prayer, meditation, and like I set the alarm for 20 minutes because if I sleep more than that, then I feel more tired. I
Do
can
you fall
jet lag.
asleep every time?
So I don't even know. Like sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It depends what my body needed on that day. I don't
Right.
bring in judgment.
Yes,
That
I
is
love
what
that. I love
shifted.
that.
It was like I'm just choosing to create a daily rest. And so it's like my boys know that if I'm going to go take a nap, that I will surface. Now, if my husband does, he might not surface for we don't know what will happen. However, like because it is just a practice and something that I have found too is like oftentimes and specifically if your audience members are parents, the evening time becomes the witching hour. It is very draining when you're dealing with people transitioning, coming home from work, from school, from day events, reconnecting after work, like unloading all the stuff. That rest gives you that moment to just be present and you've taken off that pressure. So for me, it does not impact my nighttime sleep. It's really important for somebody like if they're struggling with that sleep, like to recognize that. But
Mhm.
5 minutes is oftentimes not going to make or break your
Mhm.
sleep at night.
Mhm.
And oftentimes you're just going to be in a light state of sleep. Sometimes I'll say, just breathe. Don't do
Yeah.
anything but breathe during that 5 minute rest. And it just is amazing to see how it can transition things for everyone.
I think the reason I have questioned the nap is because of insomnia, not OCD, but it's a therapy. It's like basically they have you go to bed. Like if you're getting 4 hours of sleep, let's say, they say, okay, well, if you're going to wake up at 7, then you're going to go to bed at 3 a.m. You're going to stay awake until then to build all of this sleep pressure to then reset your circadian
Yeah.
rhythm. And you don't want to be resting during the day. So if you had someone that had severe insomnia like that, do you like that protocol? And how do you feel about napping with that?
Yeah, so I think what's going to be most important is for somebody to dive into their full day of rhythms and routines.
Okay.
Really look at the stories you're telling yourself
Mhm.
around them.
And reframe them. Do the
And
empowering story instead of the rumination
and
story.
reframe them. I think that for some people they might need to build that sleep pressure.
Mhm.
They might need to do that for the insomnia protocol. That is absolutely one of the best therapies that can
I've
be
heard it's
done
really good. Yeah.
to help with insomnia. However, like again, it's important to look at the season of life you're in.
Mhm.
And is that like 5 minute rest? Like, is it giving your body permission to just slow down? Because most of the time, what's happening is our body's in this fight or flight stage. We're running on cortisol and adrenaline.
And that's
And so
exhausting. We
and
don't have
that
a
is
lot of that.
super exhausting.
Yeah.
So it's learning how to slow down. So that's where looking at what are the rhythms and routines. Like oftentimes I'll even say, like, can we just sit down and have like a sip slowly moment? Can I just take my cup, my water bottle, and just feel the bottle
So
and
good.
just take a moment to like squeeze it and notice that. And then with kiddos, I'll even be like, let's smell our water. I have lemon in here, so
Yeah,
you know,
using the senses. We're orienting to our bottle. We're touching it. We're feeling the temperature. We're smelling it. We're tasting it. Taking that
yeah,
moment to pause, notice it going down your throat when you're drinking it.
yeah.
Instead of scrolling on our phone, anticipating what's next, not being present in the moment, trying to prevent the worst thing from happening and catastrophizing.
Yeah.
That's a it's one you got to be able to slow down to be able to recognize those things, and then when we learn how to do that, these moments can be so life-giving. And it sounds like the way I would teach, it's not about having the perfect protocol, it's about building these things into your lifestyle so that it's kind of an effortless thing that we pick up and put down, especially like you're saying on the season of life that we're in. Is something that's supporting me, or is this something that is taking away from what I want?
Yeah. I teach families flexible routines, like, so what is it that needs to get done? And what do I want it to look like, sound like, and feel like?
Hmm.
And then does that make sense? Does it make sense for me, my body, to take some of those next steps to be able to like,
So a flexible routine, meaning here's my to-do list, but I'm not going to die if it doesn't happen.
so my routine is like, I've already made some decisions around like, this is what it looks like when I'm feeding my body, when I'm moving my body, and when I'm going to sleep. Like, I've made these decisions, so I don't have to overthink it.
Explain that a little bit. What are those decisions? What does that look like?
So, so usually for feeding my body, like oftentimes with children, we're going to be eating maybe at the table.
Okay.
We're going to be in the kitchen. There's like a beginning, a middle, and an end of a routine. I think sometimes what we don't realize is that this is all happening. We're just doing stuff, right? We're living and just moving and doing stuff. But for children, like maybe it's putting on a bib, sitting down at the table, maybe getting some silverware, plates, setting the table, getting that together. Then you have your meal. What does it feel like, look like, sound like? Are we talking about the the highs and lows of the day? Are we giving gratitude of things that happen during the day? Notice how I'm layering in some of these other regulation tools, these
Sure, yeah.
mindset moments of like we're bringing in this connection versus sometimes there's situations where we're bringing in judgment like, are you eating enough? Are you still hungry? Do I need to change what I'm doing? Like,
Now
and our
that feels
brain,
like control, and that feels
right,
stressful.
control and pressure. And so the goal is like, let's show up, let's make this enjoyable. And then this is the part that I still struggle with, that I'm still working on in my routines, is the closing the routine.
Okay.
So we ate, but now we have to like clean up. But sometimes I'll transition to the next part where I'm like, I'll just sit down, relax, and then the mess is left. Versus do I get everybody involved and delegate and partner with everybody to help with that cleanup process? So
Okay.
it's sometimes looking at the beginning, middle, and end of routines, and are there any open loops that we haven't finished that keep the brain going? So I have a lot of times parents are like, if the kitchen's not clean, then I'm like trying to put my child to bed, and like then that becomes stressful, and it's like, oh, I have to prepare this for tomorrow. So then it's sometimes really looking at like, what are my expectations? What do I really need to get done? What matters the most? And like oftentimes if we take like that, it seems like it's going to take a lot of time, but it really usually is only like 10 to 15 minutes to like process a routine, be like, what really needs to happen here? We realize what we can let go of and where we're putting additional pressure
So,
onto
okay,
ourselves.
in this situation, the way where I see my wife and myself is I like to cook. When I get up, when I get done, that's my time of day to kind of relax, decompress. So I cook. She gets home. She likes to clean. And if like sometimes she'll say, "Oh, I want to clean tomorrow morning," but I know that I want her to go on a walk with me in the morning so that we can kind of talk. And so in that moment, the flexibility would be, "Hey, you're tired. Go sit on the couch. I'll knock that out so we can decompress on the couch, and then we get our walk in the morning instead of waking up and feeling like this pressure to I got to clean up instead of connect with my spouse."
Yeah. Could we even do it together?
Yeah, yeah.
Like sometimes we forget, like, can I do it with you?
Mhm.
Like, because sometimes we feel like somebody has to do it, and for children, they need somebody to do it with them. So they learn so that they could do it later when they're adults.
Yeah. And they
But
can ask for help when they need
you
it.
know, or knowing how to ask for help.
Mhm.
Like, hey, I'm really feeling burnt out. Today's been a long day. I don't have the bandwidth for this. So it comes back to how we're communicating.
Instead
And
of
I
putting
think,
that pressure on, like, yeah, then you do it in the morning, it would be, well, let me knock it out for you. Or let's do it together right now, and then everybody wins.
yeah. And I think that we have this expectation that like every day is supposed to look the same. And we're supposed to have
Right.
the same
Yeah.
kind of energy every single day and every single moment. And that like we're going to have good days every day.
Mhm.
And the reality is that there's hard moments and there's hard days, and our energy is going to ebb and flow as to what we can and can't handle. And so when we can recognize that we're human in that process, that's going to also help us have better expectations rather than feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to do all of this the same every single day. That's where that flexibility comes in, that
Yeah.
we
And
can be
if it's good
adaptable.
or bad, there's so much judgment and weight on it. But if we can just be flexible with it, take it as information and know that it's a good day no matter what, by focusing on the things that we want and really looking at that story in our head, I think that's the biggest takeaway I'm taking so far is what's the story you're telling yourself and how can we flip that and make
Yeah.
today a good day, make today just another day, not necessarily a good or a bad day.
Yeah. Just make it a day. Make it like it's those ordinary moments that oftentimes help us sleep better because like we showed up and we were present in that moment.
Mhm.
And that allows us to just be and let go and drift off to sleep.
I think about my client and myself. I think about my clients and I think about me that walk in and they go, "Well, how'd your day go?" And you go, "Oh, well, I had anxiety. I'm dealing with anxiety. I'm dealing with this, blah, 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 blah. I'm afraid I'm not going to sleep tonight." But what good happened? I had some good calls. I had a podcast with Irene. I got to see my friend. I had a good workout. So it's noticing the mindset and the story we're telling ourselves constantly, and we can be in charge of that and change our perception of things.
Yeah, the brain is doing its job, right? It's protecting us. It's going to the negative, like, oh no, you might be in danger. So it's recognizing we have to take the lead and shift our perspective.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Selfishly, I want to circle back. We got maybe 15 more minutes here. And I
Yeah.
want to talk about waking up in the middle of the night. I know that myself last night before we were talking, I had some activation that was hanging around and I woke up around like it's usually like between 2 and 4 and I wake up and there's this big anxiety push or maybe we're just waking up and there's nothing really there. Um, I think I remember tying this back in my trauma stuff is learning about crying it out and being alone and having that terror come up in the middle of the night. But, anyways, what are some strategies? What's going on with the 2 to 4 a.m. wake up? What do you know about children and how can we extrapolate that to the parents or to the individual who's dealing with anxiety?
Yeah. So I want to, if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen. So if
Yeah,
someone's
please do.
listening, I might encourage them to maybe come watch our video. But I'm going to just do a quick little overview. If anyone is dealing with children's sleep cycles, they're about 40 to 50 minutes. And this is happening especially during the first 5 to 6 years of life. After that, we get into like 90-minute cycles. We start to see that really emerge in the preschool season into adulthood. And so babies don't actually have a circadian rhythm until somewhere between 12 to 16 weeks of age. So this is where their body's producing that melatonin, that sleepy hormone saying, hey, it's time to go to sleep, which is very short-lived in the body. And adults oftentimes will feel that sleepy hormone and sometimes begin to scroll because they're like, I don't want to do this, So they'll pick up the phone and just scroll, but your body was actually communicating to you that you're tired. So sometimes it's important just to maybe notice that in your day, and that can actually really help you have some awareness around what's taking place. But the way I simplify like looking at nighttime sleep patterns for children and parents alike is thinking about how we go to sleep at the onset of bedtime. And for children, they're typically ready to go to sleep between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock at nighttime. So this is the bedtime window. And then they're ready to wake up somewhere between 6 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. So working towards a consistent wake time actually really helps your body create a good natural rhythm and flow to start your day. And it's really about light exposure. But
Mhm.
what's important to think about is like at the beginning of the night, you fall into more deep sleep. So you'll see these like longer sleep patterns going into stage 3 and stage 4 sleep. Now, I know we live in a world with all this data and people are tracking their sleep and all this and trying to figure out like, well, which sleep stages was I in last night? I oftentimes will recommend like looking at it as like a whole picture
Mhm.
rather than getting so focused on like how much sleep, like because everybody's body is going to be a little bit different in what they need. But these yellow and pink sections, these are light sleep. And what's important to know, especially for children, is that when they're in light sleep, this is when they sometimes could be sleeping with their eyes open. They could be zoning out. And this is also for the person whose brain is very busy. Like sometimes if you've ever like just laid down and zoned out, after you woke up from that or like had like a yoga meditation or something like that, you probably feel refreshed.
Mhm.
And so this is that light state. It's this dreaming state that is occurring. And so typically somewhere around 2 till 6 in the morning, you're in this lighter state of sleep. Now, when I'm on a postpartum doula shift, I'm with families overnight from 10 to 6. I will experience babies like every single movement, like they're grunting and like and doing all of this crazy stuff, or like they'll even flip their legs up and down or even cry out. And this is where I really encourage parents to really just pause and listen because sometimes this is just sleep communication. Like your body is going from like a light state of sleep to a deep sleep, state of sleep. So just being able to pause and like notice that for adults, it looks like maybe you're adjusting your pillow or your blanket and you're kind of in a twilighted sleep. So what matters the most here is like what you decide to do
That's what I want
during
to know about.
during these stages. And my recommendation is often like just keep laying,
Just
keep
keep laying.
sleeping, keep laying and sleeping.
What
But
if we feel like we got to go to the bathroom, or that mind just gets going? What do we do with those two options?
yeah, so
Situations.
I know for me, like this is the part where like thinking about during the day, taking a moment to actually be with those feelings, those emotions, breathing love through the day, being able to like sit in the discomfort of, whatever is happening with our children or our relationships with our spouses or coworkers, so that we're not ruminating in this evening time. Because if we don't deal with it during the day, then this is when it's coming up
Oh yeah,
for us.
yeah.
So
I haven't checked in with my body all day, and I wonder why it's screaming at me when I lay down to go to bed at night.
yeah, so it's processing here in the middle of the night, which is not the ideal time. So that's where it's important to really front load and think about what have I done to take care of myself during the day, from the start of my day to help me through it. Sometimes I'll encourage parents to even journal in the dark. Like
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
if you have a thought that keeps coming up, like I used to have just a spiral notebook when this was happening for me frequently. And I would just have it with a pen or pencil ready and I would just write in the dark. It's actually pretty entertaining. I wish I would have kept it to see in the morning time, but at least it would get it off my brain. But one of the things that can also be helpful is like at bedtime, sometimes like writing out like your to-do list of the things that you need to wrap up. I actually try to encourage parents, especially like after you're done with your work day, build in like, okay, I'm getting ready to shut down my laptop. Can I write down like what I need to do tomorrow so I don't have to think about it anymore? That is a great way to not have to be thinking about it at this like 2 to 4 or 5 o'clock
Hmm.
time frame. If you have to go to the bathroom, I'm going to encourage you to like reflect on what does hydration look like for you during the day?
That's a good one.
Most people don't realize like you get really thirsty as the day goes on. So are you hydrating first thing in the morning? And the recommendation is actually to do 12 to 16 ounces first thing in the morning of water to help wake up your body, wake up your organs, and set the tone.
Oh yeah, I've got my little morning water. I got a mason jar, and
I love it.
my routine is I throw some creatine in there. I got spring water. I throw some electrolytes in there, um, and a lemon, half of a lemon I throw in there, which is kind
Perfect.
of waking up the digestion and kind of thing. And it's something I look forward to every morning. And then I'm crushing those, probably having 4 or 5 of those, 6 of those throughout the day. And I do try to stop if I can before dinner. Now, if I do, like last night, I did an Epsom salt bath before I went to sleep, and I needed some water after that.
Sure.
But I see that that can definitely help with the nighttime awakening if we're not super hydrated going to bed.
Yeah. And I think what you did there too, you were creating a flexible routine. You're like, hey, tonight was an Epsom salt bath night. So I'm
Yeah,
going to have a little bit more. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
So you're not beating yourself up about that.
Mhm.
You're just like, hey, this is what I do.
Because that's what happened with me with biohacking and all of these rigid routines is, man, if I don't I don't know, do my red light session, get an Epsom salt bath, drink my water, take my supplements, journal, blah blah. It's like we're turning these good, useful, supportive things into pressure, um, and dysregulating activities.
Yeah. Pressure will not help you sleep.
Mhm.
Trying to control and focus only on sleep like that will backfire
Yeah.
almost every time.
We probably need someone like you to be able to see that and to zoom out. I mean, just some of these things that you're talking about is really helping. And going back to the 2 or 4 a.m. thing, this is what really helped me. I don't know where I heard this as a random sleep doctor talking on Instagram, I imagine. And they were talking about think about a snow globe. So whatever woke you up, shook your snow globe, and we can't control that, right? So what I used to do is run and take a supplement or a medication even at that time, and I would be freaking out about what I'm doing. And that is just continuously keeping the snow globe going because the snow globe, if you've seen it, has to settle before we can go back to sleep. That's your heart rate's got to drop. We can't have these ruminating thoughts. And what really helped me was learning to trust that my body will fall asleep when it's ready. And if it doesn't, that's okay. And so I may have a night of dysregulated sleep where I'm up and up, up and down a couple times. But if I don't catastrophize about that, I'm changing the story and I just trust that my body will sleep. I let those thoughts float down the river. I think of meditation, oh, that's a thought, let it go, let it go. I may do the orienting stuff in my bed. And next thing you know, you're asleep. Like this morning, I woke up in the middle of the night and I did go to the bathroom. I felt my feet on the ground. I got back in bed. I worked with that activation a little bit. And I was telling you before the call, I was kind of tossing and turning, thinking I was asleep or not going to sleep, dreaming about not sleeping, and then woke up and I had went to sleep. So it's like, is it necessary to continuously tell myself this story? And can I use these tools to teach my nervous system that it's actually safe to wake up in the middle of the night, that I will go back to sleep and build this trust, update the software program that says tomorrow's going to suck?
Right. I mean, I think that the other thing too that sometimes we may not realize is you're in that light state of sleep,
Yeah.
which is still a state of sleep, which still counts.
Mhm.
But just because you're twilighted doesn't mean like you're not sleeping. So
Mhm.
laying there and just being
Yep.
is still sleep. And
Right.
we
That's
bring,
another thing that I heard too is like meditating. I like a program called New Calm. Have you ever heard of this?
I've done the Calm app. Is that
No, this
the,
is different. I think you're like this.
okay.
Maybe it's
What?
like a. I think it's similar to a vagus nerve stimulator. I don't see it
Okay.
like that. You put it on your wrist and it plays binaural beats, but the
Oh,
algorithm
yeah.
is so that your brain doesn't recognize it, and so it's entrainment. It's taking you from um, alpha, theta, down into sleep. But
Mhm.
it's more that twilight sleep like you're talking about. So it's restorative. It has saved my life on so many sleepless nights and afternoons when I need to get 20 minutes. But what I've heard is, yeah, even if you're someone who's dealing with severe insomnia, laying there and ruminating and stressing about tomorrow is going to not be so beneficial. But if I just lay there and teach my body this is okay and relax, maybe even listen to a book, I'm getting restorative, um, getting some
Restorative.
restoration.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is about the judgment you bring into it. Like I do overnights. I'm up with a baby, I'm feeding a baby and being with them, changing their diaper, taking care of them. Sometimes I'm even talking or connecting with a parent if, mom is nursing or anything like that. And knowing that like I can come back and just lay down and still get sleep
Wow.
you know and it really took until I could practice and accept the fact that this is all sleep. I don't bring judgment into it, whether it's light or deep sleep. And I think that's the part that's so hard because our culture, especially in sleep training culture, with babies and like what you were talking about, like, oh, I have to just leave my baby to cry it out. It's not so much that we're just leaving children to cry it out because we don't want to just leave them to cry it out. We want to be there with our little ones to let go. We might have
Mhm.
to do another podcast to talk about
Oh,
that.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't think we barely scraped the surface today.
You know,
There's so much good information. Thank you so much for telling us all of
yeah,
this. I mean, I am going to be going back and listening to this podcast. I know you work with parents and children, but you helped me so much today with the
I'm
stuff I've
so
been
glad.
dealing with, and I know so many of my clients and listeners are dealing with the same stuff too.
Yeah. And this is a practice that, I coach families on. It's really about learning to be. And this is the part that's really frustrating because it's like we have to step back and like learn to slow down. And
Yeah.
I'm originally from Chicago. And so we were very fast-paced, do go, 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 go. And like moving here to North Carolina, learning to slow down. Like this has been a practice. It's not something that I just knew how to do.
Mhm.
But it is just learning to pause
I
and
think
like,
that is like one of the most underrated things that we can do is Paul in a world that is go, 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 burn it both in Amazon Prime. We
yeah,
can slow down, pay attention. It does not have to be this overt, perfect practice. It can be a minute and a half to 2 minutes and notice the stories, reframe that. Notice the story that you're telling yourself, and then these little habits add up throughout the day to where now you're getting good sleep and you don't have to be perfect at it and you're getting good sleep. I just highlighted this is all sleep, what laying awake and just resting, that's sleep too. Wow.
yeah. Don't bring judgment to it. Mitch, I want to share one last story with you.
Go for it.
One of my mamas, she would order stuff on Amazon in the middle of the
Okay.
night. Like that was her like go-to. So we talked about like what if she practiced pausing and only gave herself a guideline like, I can only order things during nap time, not in the middle of the night.
Mm.
And so by just pausing, she realized like to not order things and gave herself permission. Like if she really still needed that, she could order it during nap time the next day because we are so quick to make decisions in those sleep deprived moments.
And it becomes
And
a compulsive behavior.
right. I mean, and she was just really struggling because she was like looking for every hack in the middle of the night. Like
Yeah,
maybe if I have this sleep sack or this light and this and that, you know what I mean? And it was all the things. And I was like, how about let's talk about it. Let's figure out if we need it during that nap time.
that's right. I love that. That's why we need
And,
people like you that can zoom out and see the whole picture.
and she realized she was like, oh, she was like, I wanted it in that moment because she saw something on social media and like it was a promotion and like it really is just about the sleep nuances. And if we can step back and look at like, what is it that I really want? What do I need? It's going to shift things.
That's what you're at. So I do this with my clients where I map our compulsions. What happened when activation comes in? What do? I go into fixing and Googling and figuring things out. And I think where I'm um, going to be adding in is what is the story that I'm telling myself? Because if I can observe the pattern and I can observe how that is making me feel, I'm going to see that's making me dysregulated, adding pressure. I'm fatigued because of it. And what happens when I don't? Well, it may be a little dysregulating at first, but that's where we come in with choice and trust instead of force and control. And that is
Right.
a completely different outcome for the nervous system and the sleep we're trying to get.
Yeah. And it's a practice.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been
Yeah.
extremely illuminating, and I'm going to be listening to it again. I'm sure folks are wondering where can they find you and what do you got going on? Tell us where you're at and how we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I'm at lovinglessonslearned.com. And so I do sleep coaching and postpartum doula work. I work with families birth till about school age children. And, if you have children that are keeping you up at night, we can talk through some of that in a one-to-one session or in our group sessions. And so I have a monthly Ask Me Anything where we focus on one of the topics that comes up in parenting. And so sometimes we're talking about specifically newborn sleep. Sometimes we're talking about meal prepping. We're talking about the things that interrupt day-to-day life that sometimes become challenges. So how do we create routines that help us sleep better?
I love
So
it.
that's
And if you
what we're
have, I would
doing.
love to get links on the Ask Me Anything.
Yeah,
So we can
I'll
stick
send that.
that in the YouTube description and people can check that out. I know I might show up and ask you anything after spending an hour with you. I have so many more questions.
Yeah,
So we'll have to do a round two on sleep. You're going to be my local sleep girl, and anybody here that's in Raleigh, definitely give Irene a shout. Check out her links below. Again, Irene, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great to connect with you and learn more about sleep. I have a million notes here.
great. Well, thank you so much for having me, Mitch.
Absolutely. And so, to the listeners, if you made it this far, awesome. And thank you. We like comments. We like likes. We have questions. Put them in the description below. I'll be tagging Irene and we'll be happy to answer any of those for you. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time.